down to $300, $400, $500 a month. If your car is a Tesla, the charging infrastructure is much easier. In the EV world, there are level 1, 2, and 3 charging stations. Hello and welcome back to Car Rental University. I am your host, Alex Withrow. Today we're going to talk about 4 things you should consider should you get an electric vehicle. They are becoming much more popular these days, and I want you guys to think about a couple of things should you get them. Before we get into that, click below, grab the 5 things you must do before starting a car rental business. Lots of great information in there that also comes with the Car Share Growth Guide, which gives you a city by city, zip code by zip code breakdown of which car share platforms are strongest in your area. Lots of great information in there. And as always, give this channel a subscribe and a like. I very much appreciate it. Electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular throughout the United States. Interesting thing, Hertz had a big Tesla sell-off, and a lot of fleets around the country have been buying up the used Teslas that were sold off from Hertz. So that is something of interest. If you are planning to get into this space with the electric vehicle, there's a couple of things that you really need to think about before you purchase an electric vehicle. First thing, as always, you want to get a payment on a car if you are financing it that is reasonable. A lot of these electric vehicle companies and just different programs can many times get you in at like $900, $1,000, $1,200 a month, $1,300 a month. Too much, way too much. That's too much. The economics of car sharing do not make sense at that price point. Really, the only way you can make that work is if you are doing a private rental agreement, but some companies don't want you to use your car for rideshare or with Uber drivers, so that's kind of a very fine line to walk. What I would say to you is that now that more used electric vehicles are out there, the price point for those and the economics of those cars makes a lot more sense when you can get those monthly payments down to $300, $400, $500 a month. That definitely makes a lot more sense for the car share space. Another thing I want to draw your attention to, the second thing, is the tax credit. There is a $7,500 tax credit for electric vehicles. There's also a new used tax credit that is coming down the pipe through the IRS. Not quite as much, but that is still to be determined in terms of how much it is. So many times you can roll those tax credits into your financing. You can take the cash later. That does lower the monthly cost of an electric vehicle significantly. It really kind of helps you with that payment. In many cases, that can take 15 or 20% of the overall price off of the electric vehicle. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is the charging infrastructure. Just to kind of give you a brief rundown on, so if your car is a Tesla, the charging infrastructure is much easier and much easier to work with. Tesla has a pretty significant network of charging stations at this point. In the EV world, there are level 1, 2, and 3 charging stations. Level 1 is kind of like what you would hook up in your garage. It takes about 7 or 8 hours to charge overnight. Level 2 typically is a faster charging mechanism, charges your car up in about 2 hours, maybe a little less. And then a level 3 charger is what's like really the supercharger, and that gets your car charged up in about 20 to 30 minutes. The Tesla network is a lot more extensive when it comes to charging. If you do not have a Tesla, if you have like a Nissan Leaf, like Kia, whatnot, there are still plenty of charging stations out there, but there's just not as many level 3 stations that can really do it quickly. So if you're going to incorporate your EVs into your fleet, you need to really understand the charging infrastructure of where you live, where you can find those level 2, level 3 charging stations, and where to put them, where to kind of like strategically map out your cars so that it's pretty easy to get to those stations. Now, one thing I did want to mention, if you aren't able to find some of these charging stations or the infrastructure, there are companies out there that do mobile charging now. Zipcar uses them pretty extensively. They can roll up in a truck and charge up your car. Typically costs 40 or 50 bucks per each charge, but if you want to do that, that is a backup option. It's not a bad idea. Off the top of my head, I can think of like a company, Spark Charge is one of them that really can help you with that. These are kind of all the little things you have to think about when it comes to EVs. Also, one other thing I wanted to point out is that like on the Tesla, there is a small battery and a big battery. The small battery, when that gets damaged, $250 to replace. The big battery costs about $20,000 to replace. So that is obviously something you need to be careful of. When these big batteries go out, it's usually around 125,000 miles on the car. And so that is really something you got to be careful about. EVs typically have fantastic battery life and fantastic mileage. solid. They can go for many miles, but you do have to be careful about the large battery expense. In general, their maintenance is really not that much. It's just tires and brakes, and that's about it. There's no oil changes, obviously. There's not a lot of mechanical components that are going to break down compared to a gas or diesel engine. Overall, these are some of the things you really need to think about should you get into the electric vehicle space. I do see this growing over time, and I think this will be a larger and larger component of our industry in time. All that to say, drop some comments. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Before I go, click below, grab the 5 things you must do before starting a car rental business. I will catch you in the next episode. Thank you.